This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 189 on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You're listening to Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
You know, when we started this project, 3 years ago or so? And we've got a great show for you scheduled today. We're going to talk some Tigers. I mean, opening day's right around the corner. The wonderful world of wrestling, a whole lot's going on there. We've got a Jockson session where Doc comes armed with a whole bunch of ammunition for some verbal warfare with myself. And, of course, we're going to start with some March Madness. And that's kind of where I want to take this right now. 3 years ago when we started this project, working out of a basement with a laptop that froze up on us all the time in the middle of shows, and we'd have to sit there and recut different bits that we had worked on for, a half hour or so because we had lost them. I never in a million years would have thought that we would be able to send a credentialed member of the media to cover March Madness, the opening weekend taking place in Indianapolis. You got to go, you got to see Michigan sit there and play two outstanding games. What was it like? I know me and you have talked about it, but just kind of put me there, take me there. Let me know what you had experienced, because as you were kind of going through and making your rounds and working your way to get situated, you're like, I kind of got lost. I had to ask for some help. So just kind of fill me in on what took place when you sat there to go and cover Michigan.
Well, first things first, I got to the arena pretty early, a couple hours before tip on Friday, about 12:15 was the tip. I got there about 9:45. So I get in there and I'm like, okay, please, just let me be on the list. Let them, when I give my name, say, okay, you're on the list. So I go in there, I give them my ID and stuff, and they
because
go,
this has happened before where we're not on the list.
So the first
we're told we're on the list, but we're not on the list.
First things first, get on the list, be okay. And then when I saw the envelope with it in there, I'm like, yes, victory. So I put it on and I said, okay, let's go do this. So I went to the downstairs area. The media event center was downstairs. And so I get down there, and all of a sudden you see there's literally 15 tables where writers could sit, and it had the layout perfectly. So right away I'm looking, okay, let me get my bearings. Let me kind of walk around for the first 10, 15 minutes. And I kind of see where the media interview room is. I see where, after the game, how it's going to go. So beforehand, I had read all the information that was given to me, so I kind of knew. I knew that after the press conference, there'd be some situations where you could go into the locker room for about 30 minutes and get some information and get anything that you would need from the players and the coach. So I kind of made my way around the event center. Then I walked right out to the court. So I asked, okay, where's the court? So I go right out to the court, start taking pictures, and I'm in awe, and I'm like, wow. So to be there, you're right on a basketball court, and you start to see the magnitude, because there were national media guys just sitting there on their phone. They're sitting around. You've seen a couple local media there that were early, and they were doing their prep videos, and they were doing some stuff they were typing. So for me, I had the opportunity. It was a blessing doing what we do, basically audio-based and reporting-based, and no real set deadlines. I could just kind of walk around and get a vibe and take pictures and walk. I just walked around the entire floor there of the Bankers Life Fieldhouse. So I took it all in and seen where we were situated, and kind of, took my time with it and kind of took it all in. And it was amazing to be there, because it's basically the way you would think when a large event happens with a lot of media. There's people going all over. There's a lot of different parts. You have the concessions. You have people selling T-shirts. You had the Michigan band off to the side, right by the floor, coming in and practicing. Then you had the spot where the buffet was, and then right behind it, you had all the media tables, and everybody situated, and it was unbelievable. Well organized. It was really something where if you had a question, you can walk to anybody with a suit on and ask a question, and they would help you. So the only thing I would do differently is getting there the same day within a couple hours. If you had gone the day before and gone to a practice, you can get the lay of the land. So you can see where the locker room was. You can kind of see how the vibe is. I had the simple goal of, I'm just going to find a media member that I know, and I'm going to follow them, so I know they're going to go into the locker room.
I was going to ask you, did you hook up with anybody that you knew, and you just kind of used them to help navigate you a little bit?
Not overtly.
Okay.
So what I did was, after the press conference, I knew where to go. I got there early. I left the OK State game a little early, about with a minute left. So I got to sit down and watch that final shot that OK State made that screwed up everybody that bet the game in Vegas. So I got to see that in my chair, and I waited right on time. 5 minutes after the horn rang, boom, John Beeline and the crew comes up there. They set the parameters. It goes down. Boom, they say it's going to be for 12 minutes. It was for 12 minutes, and they went back. So right when John Beeline left, he was the last one to go down the stairs. I saw the swarm of media rush. So, okay, I'm like, boom, I knew where to go. I had my stuff packed. I followed them. But I didn't know exactly where to go in terms of the locker room. So I just asked security, where's the locker room? They're like, follow the signs around this way. So you have to go all the way around and get into the locker room. But when you get in there, it was like the set of a movie is how I would describe it. Lights everywhere. It's real hot. And you have about 40 people with microphones and cameras right there. They're already going to town, going to work, getting information from Zach Irvin, Derek Walton Jr., and the coach had not come in yet by that point. So I was able to get right in there. And the good advantage that I had was that I'm a shorter guy. So I could kind of work my way into a spot right there in front of Zach Irvin and ask a question. But taller people and people with boom mics and a lot of microphones had to kind of maneuver because it was such there were so many people, literally about 40 people around him, and it was hot. And it was one of those things where you got in there, you asked the questions, and the good thing is that the players know you're going to have one wave of questions, and then some pool of reporters are going to go to the next guy. So I kind of got right to the front after the first wave left. And I was able to just get right up in there and ask a question. You know, at that point, I felt like I belonged. The part where I didn't feel like I belonged was getting to and from the spots, like in a timely manner. Kind of had to ask around, fiddle around, but I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was going to ask about. I knew what the agenda was for me, was just to go there and basically use it as a form of like a practice. Like, this is what I'm going to do if I were in a big-time situation in a Super Bowl, and appreciate the moment and just use it as a learning experience. Get a vibe of what's going on.
I'm glad you could practice during a huge, massive event like the NCAA tournament. Yeah, just practice.
It was.
But because you did a great job. You really did. You did a really good job. I want to commend you on that.
It was unbelievable to think the same thing that you did was, first of all, I applied really with a less than 0% chance of them approving me because I applied where when in the application phase, it tells you like, you know, team member, you know, so I applied as a radio talent and for the team of Michigan. Right. So I didn't put internet reporter. I didn't put internet-based podcasting. I didn't use the other option. I just put Michigan radio talent is how I classified myself. And so I'm like, okay, I mean, I literally have applied to 5 Michigan games to go cover just to see, and within 4 seconds, I get denied from the University of Michigan. So I never in a million years thought that Monday when it came back that they would say yes. So to go do it, I'm like, okay, you got to research and do your homework and really take the opportunity to see what other people are doing. I could observe a little bit how the questions are asked, what's asked, how the flow goes, because even though there were other media there, the locker rooms for college athletes are not available. You cannot, when you cover Oakland, when you cover Michigan or Michigan State, for the majority of games, you cannot just walk into the locker room. Right. You got to go to the common area where the SID will bring the coach and the athletes. You don't just get to walk into the locker room and do your thing.
And if you have anything for a specific athlete that you don't get a long press row right there when you're sitting there interviewing everybody, you can usually grab the SID, ask them to go into the locker room, pull that person out for you, and you got to interview them outside the locker room. You're never allowed inside the locker room.
You got it. So we got a chance to see what it was like, and the good thing was I did they did say like, hey, one more question for coach, so I tried to get in there and ask him a question, so I kind of befuddled my words and kind of got confused there for a second where he had to clarify what I was saying, but I was just asking what his thoughts were about the potential matchup next between Louisville and Jackson State. And I said, instead of saying, you know, what do you think about your potential next opponent? I said, what do you think about the final matchup? And he looked at me and was like, huh? And I said, your potential next opponent, what do you think about them? And he gave me a solid answer. And I got up right in there. And that's the thing that I think you know, and now I know as part of this network, you know, just on Tuesday, Thomas the Hitman Hearns took time out of his busy day to come here. And so, you know, I think as we do more stuff and as we keep this project going, you realize that, hey, we are a legit source. People do like what we're doing. We don't have a plethora of haters. You know, we do got a couple haters, but not too many. The majority of people that see our work and really take it in realize, wow, these are independent guys. I got a credential for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network independently. You know, we're not funded by too many people. We're not, you know, under anybody's thumb. We do our own thing. And that really made it for me a lot more special knowing that, hey, we are now credentialed media. We're an outlet that can provide coverage similar, maybe not to the exact pinpoint level of a free press or a news, but within reason, within what we are capable of doing. I would say that if you follow Detroit Podcast on the weekend of the opening weekend for Michigan, you got information. You got access.
A ton of information.
You got information that you probably would not have if you did not follow us. And I'm proud of that. And I think you recognize it, that all I'm doing is just asking. Yep. That's my philosophy. I'm just kicking, and I'm not, asking nicely. I'm trying to kick the door. I'm trying to kick the damn door down. I'm trying to say, listen, this is a podcast network that started in a basement, that has respected journalists like yourself, like Vito, that are really in the business and understand the fundamentals. And you got me who doesn't care and just kicks the door down and just going to ask. I don't care. I'll ask anybody anything at any time because I don't have that fear of rejection because I got 2-3 other things going on. This is my passion project that I love doing, that I look forward to doing, but it's not something where for me, if the NCAA rejected me, I'd go home crying. It's just when it happens though, the feeling of acceptance that you get is amazing. And so that's why in each and every opportunity, I send an email to the people that accept me and say, I'm grateful for the opportunity, because it literally is crazy that guys like you and I have the ability to go out there and do some things as a podcast. But I do believe the trend is shifting, because you see now with Drew and Mike, and I give him credit for taking that step to not do a podcast once a week. He's doing it 5 days a week. I give credit to those people that are taking it further, like a Jake Chapman, like a Neil Rule. I respect that they know that they came in here, talked to me about it, saw what we were doing, and realized, you know what, I should be doing it.
Yep.
So the Detroit Pistons right now have a 5-day-a-week podcast, and they should go do that. And that's what this podcast field is now at, in that from 2013 it was different. We would have never even thought to try it. But what we did, and what any formula is, you work hard in the beginning, and you get the fruits of your labor at a different time. And I hope that people that follow Detroit Podcast follow your work, Adam, Vito's, Jason's, Jerry Mallory, who produces great content for us. They realize, hey, we're just guys that love sports, and we love to put out content. And the NCAA, they allowed us to go cover their event in Indianapolis. And wow, what a thing to say.
And at this point, we've got a very good working relationship with the Detroit Pistons. We've got a great relationship with some local colleges in Oakland and U of D. Good working relationship now with the NCAA. So Lions, Red Wings, Tigers, y'all better watch out, because we're kicking those doors down next. So you better make some way and better get some credentials ready for us.
Is there a better word than to describe us as, at first in 2013, 2014, I called us like a virus that just was spreading.
You did.
Are we now
every show, the virus is spreading.
I said the virus is spreading because I had a feeling we were growing on Twitter. People were listening to the shows. They were engaging with us. I said we're like a virus because we knew, listen, we're a podcast. We're non-traditional media. That's what we're always going to be viewed as. But it makes it so much more special because anybody with the free press is going to get at least a credential. You know that they're print. TV, they sent through one staff member each to the event. You know they're going to get passes. For a podcast network to say those words, I felt great. To have it on tape is amazing, in that we could say that, hey, we were at the NCAA and we didn't ask stupid questions. We were there asking questions that people would legitimately ask and want to know about. So now, are we still a virus, or are we now like a full-blown epidemic?
I think we're like a plague.
Plague?
Yeah.
Epidemic is, I think, more than a plague, though, right?
Is it? I don't know.
I got to look that up.
Yeah, I was going to say,
okay.
You sit there, you move on to the next topic here, well, staying with the March Madness, and I'm going to look up the difference between plague and what was that? Epidemic?
Plague and epidemic. I know it's one in those categories. We're the CDC of sports broadcasting. I'm trying to figure out what kind of disease we are.
I'm Googling plague right now.
You got it.
Let's see one right here. So, a contagious bacterial disease characterized by fever and delirium, typically with the formation of bulbuses, see bubonic plague, and sometimes infectious of the lungs, cause continuous trouble or distress too. I don't know if we cause trouble or not. All right, so it was the other one was epidemic, you said? Epidemic. Let's see if I can spell this right. For those who don't know, I have a journalism degree and I can't spell. Thank God for Microsoft Word pulling me through every single day. All right, epidemic. I think we're more epidemic. A widespread occurrence of infectious disease in a community or at a particular time. Yeah, so
we're DSP epidemic.
That's
we
right.
graduated. Yes, sir.
Look at us.
Look at us. Gone from a virus.
Just viruses spreading all over the place in a community.
Independent. That's why I love it. I love it that we're doing similar things to other outlets in our own independent way. It makes it that much more fun because we're in charge of it. We do what we want when we want to do it. And hopefully in the coming year, we have more opportunities to do it because, hey, all we can do now is set our sights higher in that one day, potentially DSP will ask Bill Belichick and Coach Caldwell a question when they're facing off in the Super Bowl. When they're facing off in Super Bowl 56 and Bill Belichick's on his last leg and he's all decrepit, rolling out there in a wheelchair, I'm going to ask him a question.
And Bob Quinn's got us to the promised land, and it's the Detroit Lions versus the New England Patriots.
It.
Wishing super hard.
So, Michigan, man, let's start with them because I know you want to talk about State and the disastrous ending that they had versus Kansas, but the Michigan team, man, that story, when you look at it in totality, it's a great story. You look at it and many people are saying and acknowledging that a lot of people didn't follow the Michigan basketball team because of what Jim Harbaugh is able to do. And that really is to the credit of Jim Harbaugh in that anything that he does is so covered, is so overwhelmingly looked at that he's basically overshadowed an entire program that's doing okay. Remember, they're just a couple of seasons now removed from, being in the national title game within basically a bad foul call away from maybe even winning it and having a title, a title banner up there at Chrysler Arena. But the Michigan team, the way it shook out throughout the year, it was a meleaguered team. They were underperforming. They were starting to explore who John Beilein was bringing into the program, why they weren't recruiting national talent. Some people were even saying that, hey, maybe we should even replace John Beilein. And then you have the plane crash, and since then, the storyline has completely changed. You have the senior leadership taking over, and you have a team that's playing really solid basketball and basically overachieving because many people thought that Louisville was going to take them down. And once Louisville was able to take away the three-point shot, nobody really thought that Michigan was going to go inside and be able to dominate. So the Michigan basketball team deserves a lot of credit for what they were able to do. John Beilein's having a good old time making national news. And what John Beilein has been able to do is take a team that maybe individually is not that good, but collectively as a team is playing really well and really solidly. And they have a legitimate chance to get to the Final Four. But the way I'm looking at it, and I think objectively you'd say they have a good chance versus Oregon and probably will get waxed if they play Kansas.
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility. What I find most interesting about this team right now is kind of how you built this topic up. Weeks before this team entered into the Big Ten tournament and before they got hot, this was a team where everybody was starting to sit there and scratch their head and say, hey, does John Beilein have to go? Is there somebody else out there who can sit there and do more with this team and do more with the recruiting ranks and bringing better talent into this program? Because they were struggling. They were scuffling along the way. They didn't look good. There were a lot of different things going on. It was just kind of head-scratching because it looks like you had some talent, but they just weren't performing on the court. And then next thing you know, they sit there and they rattle off, I believe, 10 of 12 wins. They sit there, they get into the Big Ten tournament, and they get super hot. And they sit there and they're the lowest seed to ever win a Big Ten tournament. And then next thing you know, John Beilein is taking this team to the Sweet 16 for the third time in 5 years. And you're like, whoa, I don't know if you realized it or not. I didn't realize that this was the third time that they're going to the Sweet 16 in 5 years. That's an incredible accomplishment. That's something that like Tom Izzo does. For John Beilein to be able to do that. And again, like you said, he's not out in front, sitting there getting, top 10 national recruits. He's doing this with guys like a guy like a Mo Wagner. Who's Mo Wagner? I mean, he's the guy that he went on a German recruiting trip and he sat there, was able to pull, and good God, I'm glad he did. Michigan has played out of its mind this past weekend. That game against Oklahoma State, that was incredible. And the way that they were able to win, I mean, there were some huge shots by both Walton and Wilson, and they were able to kill you from the outside. And then you sit there, you fast forward to Sunday afternoon, the outside shot wasn't falling. And John Beilein was able to make some coaching changes, was able to do some things at halftime, and they came out and they went all inside. They hardly attempted any outside shots, and they were able to kill you on the inside with Wagner. And here's the thing I like about this Michigan team. It's just not those guys. It's not just Walton and Wilson or maybe even Irving or Wagner. They have secondary scoring. So when the ball's not falling for those guys, you got Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman. Yeah, that's an awesomely fun name to say. Try saying it 10 times fast. It's great. Or you got a guy like a Duncan Robinson or a Mark Donnell. I mean, these are secondary scorers that are coming off your bench and they're contributing in big ways. The thing that is scary about this Michigan team, though, the thing that makes me really nervous about them, it's their defense and their rebounding. And sometimes they play just well enough to get a win. Sometimes it seems like their defense is non-existent. These are things that I think they have to work on as they continue to advance in this tournament, but they've got a real hell of a shot to make a Final Four. And I think if they do tighten up their defense and if they do get some better rebounding, I think they're going to be in it. The one thing that this team does extremely well is they don't foul a lot. They don't seem to find themselves in a lot of foul trouble. And if one guy or two guys do find themselves in foul trouble, that secondary scoring that I had mentioned comes in off the bench and they make contributions to help this team either weather the storm or to get through and survive in advance. And that's the one thing I like about this team right now and the way they're playing.
Have you started to look at the potential matchup tonight versus Oregon?
I have, and it's going to be a challenge.
Oregon can shoot the threes pretty well.
The one thing that Michigan does have going for them is Oregon is dealing with some injuries, so Michigan might be able to sit there and take advantage. And if the three ball is going to fall for Oregon, I think the three ball can fall for Michigan as well. So it's going to be one of those things, who's going to shoot better? And if you look at the way Michigan has played the previous two games, they basically were killing it on the floor. They had great field goal percentages, and they did a solid, like I said, they did a solid enough job rebounding the ball and coming up with turnovers when they needed them. Hopefully the calls go better for them, because that weekend there were some atrocious calls that led to some scoring for Michigan's opposition, and Michigan was, like I said, able to weather the storm. So it's all about surviving and weathering those small breaks and plays and sitting there and being able to contribute on the other end and get some buckets to fall for yourself.
What percentage chance do you think that Michigan can make it to the Final Four? Because if it all goes to form and the bracket holds up, they should probably, if they do advance, play Kansas in the Elite Eight matchup, in the matchup that allows them to go into the Final Four.
And Kansas is, I think I have Kansas in one of our brackets. I have Kansas winning the whole damn thing. So I actually have Michigan losing to Oregon this next game. But if Michigan is able to get by Oregon, and then if they are to take on a team like Kansas to make it to the Final Four, I'm going to say it's probably 23%. I don't give them a great chance. It's just Kansas is playing out of their mind. The one thing that I don't like about Kansas is I don't like their head coach. Bill Self always seems to self-destruct. He is probably that team's kryptonite. He will take some of the most talent-laden teams to the dance, and next thing you know, they lose. The one thing that Oregon and Kansas both don't have that I think Michigan does, they don't have a lot of depth. I think Michigan is a little bit deeper on their bench, and they can roll more guys. They might not be as high talented as, say, Oregon or, say, Kansas's front five are. But when you get to 6, 7, and 8, I think Michigan's got a little bit more depth than the benches of both Oregon and, if Kansas is there, Kansas.
You know who couldn't take advantage of Bill Self? My Michigan State Spartans. I thought when they got it to within one that they had a legitimate chance to maybe do some things and maybe pull that momentum. I thought that, but then what happens? Ward gets into foul trouble. Izzo refuses to roll the dice, and unfortunately, the way that game shook out, when Ward was in the game, they were a plus team. They were a better team than Kansas when Nick Ward was in the game, despite the fact that Miles Bridges, their superstar, was maybe nicked up a little bit with that hip pointer. Were they able to take advantage down the stretch? No, and then the game got out of hand because Josh Jackson was able to really dominate. And once Michigan State got it to within one, Jackson took over. And that's what superstars do. And from my looking at that game and how I thought about it, I was just so jealous and so frustrated because Michigan State is always around success. You could have had Deontay Davis. You could have had Miles Bridges. You could have had Josh Jackson and Caleb Swanigan on the same team. Imagine a team like that. You could have had a super team.
It'd be super sick.
You could have had multiple national title runs or at least 2 or 3 Final Four appearances if you have a combination of 2 of those guys. Unfortunately, all you got was Miles Bridges, and this year for Michigan State can only be described as disappointing not because of what the expectation was with their talent. It was a young team, and many people thought that State might take a step back or would not even qualify for the NCAA, and what they were able to do versus Miami was unbelievable. They whooped their ass and made it a non-contest. So that was good, and Michigan State was able to continue their streak of getting into the NCAA 20 years straight, and you can't poo-poo that. But what stinks is that, and what I've been talking to a lot of people about is, basically, when you look at a stock, you can tell what the trend is. Is the stock going up? Is the stock going down? Or has the stock flatlined? And many people are going, oh my gosh, Michigan State's getting a lot of young freshmen in, and with Nick Ward and those talented freshmen that played this year, their stock is on the rise. I say, really? On the rise for what? To get to the tournament, to make a run to the Sweet 16, to get to the Final Four? That's not my barometer. My barometer at this point in time with where Tom Izzo's been is not to just make a run every couple years now. My barometer is, where is the trend going for this team to win a national title? And for me, the way I describe it is, it's flatlined, it's plateaued. It's where it is. It's, you have a team that will get to the tournament, could win a game or two, might be upset, could get into the Sweet 16, maybe the Elite Eight. Hell, they might even make a Final Four run. But at this point in time, based upon where Tom Izzo's at, when a guy's been there damn near 20 years, okay, he started in 96. A guy's been in the NCAA every year, and that's great. But where he's at with the program, I kind of want him to be like a Calipari. I want him to be like a Krzyzewski. I want him to be like a team that can get to the Final Four consistently and maybe make some runs. And I know maybe that bar is high and it might not be achievable, but what's been touted, the Hall of Fame Tom Izzo, I feel like I should demand more. And that's where I'm at with it. I feel like Michigan State as a basketball team has basically plateaued. They are a team that...
So do you want to change? Do you want somebody else to come in and now kind of build upon what Izzo has laid the foundation of, or has built upon that foundation?
I can't concretely say I want to change, but I want to say I want a new direction. I think that the expectation needs to be, if you're going to get one-and-done guys, then you get one-and-done guys that are going to take you to the title.
See,
Or you have to go two ways with it. If you're going to get a Miles Bridges and you know he's a one and done, then you have to surround him with a really solid team to get him to the point where he can be successful. Or you say, you know what? That one and done idea, I know teams like Kentucky can do it. I don't feel like a Michigan State can do that. I don't think they can effectively pull off one and dones and have success. I'd rather say, you know what? If we're going to make a run and have a chance to win it every 4 years, I'd rather get maybe 4-star guys that I know are going to stay with my program and stay as seniors and become guys that in their senior year can lead me. Because look when Michigan State's had success. They've had strong senior leadership, strong players that can take them far. Perfect example. I'd rather have more Draymond Greens on Michigan State than Miles Bridges. That's just the way it is, because look what Miles Bridges did. He played a year, great. You got a guy that people want to watch. You got one win and another day of coverage. Whoop-de-woo. I'd rather have a solid team and what Michigan has right now.
And mind you, you're speaking in absolutes, and there's no guarantee that Miles Bridges is leaving. It appears that he has a foot out the door, but nothing is concrete.
That would be amazing.
Yet.
If he comes back, I would be surprised, because the dollars are going to be coming, and by all accounts, when you look at his projections, he's going to be a lottery player. In that scenario, to come back, it'd be amazing.
It looks like he might be a top 10 pick.
You got it.
And here's the thing. I think you're absolutely right to feel the way you're feeling. You want national championships. And as a fan base, that's what you want. You want to sit there and you want to play for the championship every single year. This is what we talk about with Michigan fans, where they sit there and they make it sound like it's okay to sit there and be in the talks for a Big Ten title. Who the hell cares? You want to sit there, you want to make it to that Final Four so you can make it to the Final Two and be the last one standing. So I think you're absolutely right to feel the way you feel. The one thing I can say is, yeah, this was a really trying year, and it was. And there's only one word to describe it, and that is disappointing. But next year might be very, very special, with or without Miles Bridges. All right? If you look at what this team had, they had 4 big-time freshmen that played huge minutes. And I think if Izzo had it to do all over again, he probably would have sat there and rationed those minutes out differently, giving those guys more minutes to play with each other.
You got it.
I mean, you've got Langford, Winston, and Ward, and then if Bridges returns, I mean, that's 4 guys who are absolute studs as freshmen making contributions this year. I think next year, that offense will be much better. If Bridges comes back, I think you've got something very special. If Bridges doesn't, I still think you have something that's very good. If you look at the offense that Tom Izzo runs, it's heavy and it depends strongly on good guard play. And Cassius Winston looked like he took big steps as the season progressed. I think if Izzo would have gave him more minutes, he probably would have been a better player later in the year for you guys. But I think it looks to be that he'll be a stud, and I anticipate him taking a lot of steps forward in his development. And I think that's all going to pay dividends next season. I mean, if you can tell me that Langford's going to take a step forward, Cassius Winston's going to take a step forward, and Nick Ward's going to take a step forward, I mean, there's your big 3 right there, right? And then you sit there and you can put some pieces around them. You figure you get a big-time freshman recruit that comes in who sits there and pays dividends, and you get maybe somebody else who takes a step forward from either the sophomore, junior, maybe even a senior class, and there's your senior leadership, I think you've got a very good team.
Yeah, because Nick Ward was able to show on the court that he's a force. I mean, he was able to, when Miles Bridges went down, do some things that was able to disrupt what Kansas was trying to do defensively. And so I was very impressed with Ward. And that's part of the reason why many fans are questioning Tom Izzo, is that with freshmen, with the players, he sends messages. And hell, when Nick Ward is in foul trouble, let him stay out there a little bit more. Maybe he won't get that call. I know that Tom Izzo played it close to the vest, and whenever Ward was in trouble, he kind of sat down for extended minutes. But what happened? What did people complain about throughout the course of the season? It was that you relied on Tum Tum a lot. You didn't have Ward and Bridges out there for extended periods of time together. Many people just felt on a simple basis, if you were going to take out Ward, then you had to have Bridges in the game. You could not take out Ward and Bridges at the same time. So his rotations were questioned quite a bit, and many people felt like Michigan State might have been a higher seed had, Tom Izzo been a little bit less stubborn and not sent messages. Because I understand he really focuses on defense. He wants intensity. He wants his players to play two-way basketball, and I can understand that. But when you got a team that doesn't have a lot of talent around it, you can't hope for a guy like McQuaid to come out there and start shooting lights out. You had to ride your horses, and those horses should have been Langford, Ward, and Bridges all the way through. And maybe you could have said that they could have even done more versus Kansas.
Do you think that Tom Izzo, looking back on this season and looking at the way he utilized some of these guys, maybe has some regrets and maybe would do things a little bit different? I know Tom Izzo sometimes can be the most stubborn of mules when he's dealing with young players because he feels like he knows best. He knows how to utilize their talents best. And I think this goes back to something that you were saying where you'd like to have a guy like a Calipari. Calipari handles young talent totally different than Tom Izzo does. He tends to let them just kind of run free and just kind of let them do what they want, so to say, and isn't sending messages throughout the season where Tom Izzo is benching guys, is cutting playing time. And then we've talked about it numerous times. Back in January, we discussed it when you were sitting there having a conniption because you thought they were going to sit there and not make a run in the Big Ten tournament, not make any type of a run to get into the NCAA tournament. And lo and behold, we're here. They got into the tournament, and yeah, it was kind of a one and done situation for them where they sat there, they played one game, 1-1, and then the following game they were out. But it just seems that sometimes Tom Izzo, there is a method to his madness, and I know I figured it out. He sits there and he runs these guys and plays these incredibly difficult games in the non-conference season. He then runs them into the ground where he sits there and basically he berates them, and he berates them through the media, berates them in practice, and basically tells them that the reason that they're losing all these games, it's all their fault. And then after he has this total meltdown where he's totally crucified all these guys, he turns around and he picks you up off the ground, hugs you, and he's like, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault, guys. I gotta treat you guys better." And it just, that's his system. That's his method. It's what he does to these guys. And in the end, he usually gets the return on investment that he's looking for. And I think this season, he might have maybe done it a little bit different. Maybe not have went so hard. Maybe not have benched Ward at certain points in the season. Maybe played Cassius Winston more.
In terms of what you asked, I would say he probably make one change, and that's the schedule. I think that potentially he put a schedule out there with what he had that was really tough, and that might have affected the confidence of the guys when you play that kind of schedule. It does allow you to have a high RPI and get you into the tournament with 19 wins. That's fine. But in terms of what that team needed, maybe they just needed a slightly better schedule to help them out and not play so many good teams. I mean, you played the likes of Arizona, Kansas. I think they played Duke this year. So
these are all teams that were in the tournament, and some of them are Sweet 16 teams. So yeah, it was a very difficult tournament, or a very difficult non-conference season for these guys, especially laden with a bunch of tournament teams. The one thing I think Izzo maybe, in all these schedules are done years in advance, but he tends to know what he's got coming through the pipeline. You know, he can't sit there and he can't project with a certainty, but I think he tends to know what he's got coming through his pipeline and who he's going to have at certain points when he's doing these schedules. And I think maybe losing a guy like a Deontay Davis last season to the NBA draft, that was a guy that he thought would be there this year. And it was a talent that he thought he might have and he could sit there and maybe build around. And the moment he goes away, I think now what you have is something totally different. And it kind of screws with the mix a little bit. And going into this season, I think he knew he was going to have an upward hill to kind of fight up and a little bit of a struggle.
So what I hear you saying is you think they're probably trending upward, and Tom Izzo will learn from mistakes where I feel like they've kind of plateaued.
Yeah.
Trending upward, huh?
I think next season has the potential to be special. And if Bridges comes back, I think you feel a lot better about everything.
No doubt about it. I'm way happy if he comes back.
I think even if he leaves, I think you've got 3 freshmen who are going to make an impact and who may be special down the road. I don't think they're standouts like Bridges was this year, but I think in their sophomore and in their junior seasons, they're going to be very, very good.
All right, I'm hoping any way possible. If Miles Bridges can hear this, stick with MSU one more year. And instead of being a top 10 pick, you might be the top pick. And that might put extra money in your pocket if you can just go through 35 more games and stay injury-free. But that risk of injury is too tough, man. You know,
you can always take insurance out on yourself.
That's right. Take some insurance out. Find a good agent. Come back, Miles Bridges. We need you because Michigan might have a down year. I know they're getting the Mr. Michigan coming in there, but they're losing a couple of seniors. They still have a lot left, and there's some good players in the pipeline for Michigan as well. But it seems like right now Michigan's trending way upward as compared to Michigan State. But again, the way I look at it is with Michigan State, it's always next year. A lot of people coming in next year. A lot of people coming in next year. But collectively, are they going to play well? Are they going to do some things that we expect? I just have my expectations very high, and I think Tom Izzo can meet it. But I think that he does need his second NCAA title to solidify all this Hall of Fame talk because, you know, you could have that. If you want the expectation to be a coach that gets your team into the NCAA year in, year out and gets there every couple years to the Final Four, that's fine. I just think that for me, my expectation is now I want to see, and I would think Tom Izzo would admit it too, that he wants to build a national program, and he's got to be seething knowing that I think he's just a step below. Not a top 5 program, but in that mix of 5 to 15. And if I was a competitor, I'd do anything to get into that top 5. It's not a top 5 program. It's a top 15 program in the country. And he can do it. It's just you got to find those players. You can't beg Josh Jackson to come. You got to deliver. You can't beg Caleb Swanigan to come and then have him commit and then leave. Listen, if there's some shenanigans going on, you got to match that shenanigans. If Purdue's offering the one bag of cash, you got to offer 2. So those things can happen. You don't want
vacated titles. You don't want to be... You don't want to be Calipari. Everywhere Calipari goes, there's always a stench that's left behind. Look at Calipari's UMass team. As a kid, I remember that UMass team, right? I remember them just coming in and making a ton of noise in the tournament, and then Calipari leaves, and when he leaves, there's nothing but sanctions left behind. Everywhere he goes, there's sanctions. He's a grease ball. You don't want that for your program.
But in that moment, you don't think about sanctions when they win it all.
You're right. Well, here's the thing. You say that, but anytime Calipari wins anything now, I'm always like, well, when's the sanctions going to come down? I'm just anticipating them. It's just how it is. Dude. He's a slime ball. But I think the one thing that you can say about next season, I think Winston will be better. I think Izzo's offense will be better. And that's because you're going to get good, strong guard play from Winston. His one issue that Izzo had with him was his defense. He didn't play hard enough on the defensive side of the ball. And what is defense? Defense is nothing but effort. If you get Winston to sit there and put that effort out there and match that effort, I think this entire offense looks dramatically different. And I think this season would have looked different if he could have got that effort on the defensive side of the ball.
Let's take our first time out. We'll come back. You interested in doing the wrestling segment first, then Jock Jams, or you want to do Jock Jams first? Up to you.
You pick, man. I don't care. I'm cool with either one. We can do wrestling first.
I'm definitely ready to talk about some wrestling because, again, not to bitch too much, but I definitely am. But I'm definitely looking at a segment that's going down for WrestleMania that doesn't belong on any level. I don't know how it's written this way. I don't know why, but a major talent is being underutilized. Find out next who Doc and Jock think is being underutilized on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
No botch spots here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thank you for continuing to listen, hitting that download button, because we got a lot to talk about in the world of wrestling. My goodness, I just watched SmackDown, and I want to talk about some things going on with AJ Styles. I think a lot of people do know what my thoughts are, but after watching it, again, it seems to me that it's lazy writing. Because anytime an angle involves Shane McMahon, how's it going to go down? The dude can't throw punches. You're going to build up Shane McMahon to a point where AJ Styles walks to the ring in fear and is trying to go backwards. What they did up to that point was amazing. You built up AJ Styles. He's looking like a badass. That's perfect. But to then have Shane McMahon stand in the ring and have AJ Styles be threatened by him on any level was ridiculous. And those punches that were thrown were ridiculous. I understand that Shane McMahon is a prominent figure. He is a boss. Understandable. But if his one segment a year that he's going to fight is going to be the same thing over and over again, it's going to be ridiculous. You know that he's going to do something crazy, fly off the top rope, and hit his opponent and destroy a table. But isn't that similar to what he did last year when he was going down?
That's what he does every time.
So
that's the Shane McMahon gimmick.
And if you're going to do it, you can't miss the spot.
He can't throw punches, right? That was dreadfully obvious. He can't sit there, and he doesn't have any actual in-ring wrestling ability. He's entertaining, right? He comes out, he dances, and it's solid, and I think everybody enjoys that. I think if everybody had their pick of which McMahon they wanted to run WWE going forward, I think it would be Shane. I don't see anybody who sits there and wants to see Stephanie or wants to hear her. I don't think anybody wants to see Triple H or hear him at this point. And look, Vince comes out, and Vince is going to get a pop because it's Vince. And when his music hits, everybody stands up and stands at attention, right? It's great. But at this point, Vince has become a caricature of himself. Shane's going to climb to the top rope, and he's going to sit there, and he's going to try to drop an elbow onto the announcer's desk. He missed it by over a foot.
It was bad.
It was bad. And AJ being the stud that AJ is, AJ can make just about anybody look good, right? He can. He sat there and he sold that elbow like it went straight through his heart. He laid there and he sold it and he sold it and he sold it until they faded to black. And even then, Shane got up with his busted up ribs and his bum elbow and stood over him and pointed at the stupid WrestleMania sun sign and just sat there and pointed off into the distance. Brutal.
A figure on Raw, Braun Strowman, became a prominent figure. Why? Because they let him destroy people over and over, and you built him up. And in wrestling, there's a phrase called protecting the business, because everybody knows it's scripted. They're not really hitting each other. But you can't have Shane McMahon go out there and look like that, because it makes the business look hokey. It looks fake. It doesn't look real. And so with AJ Styles, the writing has to be basically straightforward. And this is how you could elevate him if you're going to go down this road. And I can't believe people don't say this. I mean, you're going to have AJ Styles fight Shane McMahon. Okay, fine. If that's the way you're going to go, if that's the story you want to build, then how do you make AJ Styles look awesome? Throughout the build-up, it's basically straightforward. 1 week, one opponent's going to beat up the other. Then the next week, the other opponent's going to come out there, start talking trash, and get over on the other guy. You don't have to go with that strict, formulaic plan with AJ Styles. You want him to fight anybody. Okay, fine. This go around with Shane McMahon, AJ Styles is going to beat him up 1 week. Then the next week he comes out, he's going to kick his ass again. And then the next week at WrestleMania, he's going to come out there and destroy him in 6 minutes. And then you go out there and you get him on the mic and you say, if you're going to mess with me, you're going to mess with my career, this is what's going to happen because I'm AJ freaking Styles. That's how you elevate a guy. You really, and I know people will say, you have to have this back and forth nature.
You don't.
Why are you being so overly critical? You could elevate AJ Styles fighting Shane McMahon by just having him kick his ass week in, week out. And afterwards you walk out and you say, anybody you put in this ring against me is going to go down because I'm AJ Styles, and anybody at all is not on my level. Because it's the truth. He's out there trying to be a heel. People are cheering him. He's out there trying to play a bad guy, but you're undercutting him because you're having him get beat up by Shane McMahon. It looks stupid.
It's horrible. Like you said, everything, the lead up to this, when AJ Styles sat there and feuded with him in Gorilla, and then AJ Styles sat there and threw Shane O'Mac's head through a car window, and Shane O'Mac comes out with a black eye.
That's good.
AJ Styles walks to the ring, and AJ Styles shouldn't sit there and cower in fear. He should come up through the ring ropes
and kick his ass.
Yeah, just get right in his face. Beat him up. You know, sit there, suplex him into the guardrail. You know, if anybody should be going through that table, it should be Shane. It shouldn't be AJ Styles. AJ Styles needs to annihilate Shane at WrestleMania. That's what needs to happen. What you're setting up for here, and the reason for all of this, is to move AJ Styles over to Raw. That's what we're building to. I'm going to give you a little sneak behind the curtain. That's what we're building to. Vince wants AJ on Raw. So you're moving the storyline to in this direction. And this whole Shane versus AJ thing was concocted months ago, and it was our worst fear when we started to see it actually starting to be played out. You know, when Randy Orton said, you know what, I want my shot back, and I'm going to go sit there and I'm going to do what I'm going to do with Bray Wyatt, and I'm going to burn the ashes of Sister Abigail. And AJ Styles cut one of the best lines a couple weeks ago when he was sitting there cutting a promo. He's like, apparently you can just go burn stuff down and get shots at WrestleMania. It was great. That was great. You can be an arsonist, and you know how you get rewarded? You get a shot at WrestleMania.
Now, if you're a WWE writer, there's an opportunity here for some free booking from the doc. If you want to have a high spot at WrestleMania in that match with AJ Styles and Shane McMahon, it is not Shane McMahon doing anything off the ropes. It's not Shane McMahon destroying a table. You want to do a high spot?
Not him jumping 50 feet off a Titantron.
Nothing like that. You want to have a high spot in that match? Real simple. You have a table way down below. You have him fight in the ring 2-3 minutes. You have AJ Styles dominate. You have him disregard all the rules. You take Shane McMahon up to that entrance ramp. You do a Styles clash off the ramp down below into a table or something, or onto an announced position or something. You know when Hall and Nash first showed up at WCW and they took Eric Bischoff and slammed him through something that had a lot of padding. You have AJ Styles clash, Shane McMahon through something prominent, maybe deep, maybe a 10-foot down thing where he just holds him up, drops him down into it, and destroys something. The high spot has to be a Styles clash through something. Maybe you destroy glass. I don't know how you can do it where it's heavily padded, but the high spot has to involve AJ Styles. If you do with Shane McMahon, it's going to be cheap. You have to have Shane McMahon lose in an epic fashion, and it has to involve the Styles clash. I don't know if you can pull it off because that move is sick, but if there's going to be a high spot, it has to be AJ Styles.
That's one of those moves where with a guy in the experience that Shane brings to the ring, it's super dangerous because the Styles clash is
you got the arms thing. That's the hardest part, is where you got to get your arms in between the legs.
You got to keep the head elevated. So when you go down, you're not sitting there breaking the guy's neck. And that's the one thing I think all of us were nervous about when James Ellsworth. Yeah, because Ellsworth, the very first time he took it, he didn't do his job. He sat there and he almost got himself killed. And it's a good thing that AJ Styles is such a pro and has had guys actually break their neck with this move that he now knows to look out. And he's able to sit there and modify the move in mid-move to protect his opponent. Because if you don't do your job on that move and you're not keeping your head out of the way, you're going to die, essentially, is what's going to happen. But let's talk a little bit about Raw, because SmackDown was just kind of one of those things that just kind of moved the week forward to get us to WrestleMania. Well, and the big story was AJ Styles and Shane O'Mac.
Did you like Miz playing Cena? And all
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was kind of funny. I thought it was hilarious.
All right.
I thought it was great. Here's the thing. Miz and Cena cut some of the best promos. They do some of the best work on the mic. Those two guys are outstanding. You have one guy who's a great face. You got one guy who's a great heel. And they just sit there and they do that so well. So well. I thought it was outstanding. I thought it was great. I love the fact that, look, Maurice does a very nice job portraying Nikki Bella.
It was good. But with the accent makes it kind of funky. It was funny.
It does. And Miz did a great job trying to be John Cena and portrayed him to be a gigantic boob. It was great. Speaking of gigantic boobs, Maurice has some nice ones. It was well done. I thought it was well done all the way around.
So what was your reaction about Raw? I know you're interested in the fact that they finally paid it off. Mick Foley is gone. He was fired. I thought they handled it perfectly. And when Triple H came out there and just said, "Have a nice day," that was perfect use of gimmick infringement.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you knew this was coming down the line. Mick Foley has had an issue with his hip. He needs to go out and have his hip done. He needs to have some surgery done. So he's going to be laid up for at least 6 months. The interesting thing is, I'm kind of tired of the authority gimmick. I'm sick of seeing Stephanie McMahon basically run roughshod on everybody. The one thing that made the whole Vince McMahon, Stone Cold Steve Austin angle really interesting was Vince would get his. Stephanie never gets hers. She's allowed to sit there and slap guys in the face. She's allowed to punch guys in the nuts. And Triple H just sits there and just bullies everybody. And I'm kind of tired of the authority gimmick. The one thing that I would be interested to see, and there's a guy who is coming back. He's going to be introduced to the WWE Hall of Fame, and that's Kurt Angle. If Kurt Angle isn't able to wrestle, because I'm not sure what his health will allow, and WWE is very strict with their health policy at this point. That's why Daniel Bryant, who's been cleared by a couple different doctors to be able to get back in the ring, but WWE is apprehensive and is holding him out. That's why they have him in his general manager's role, or his general manager's role. You could bring a guy like Kurt Angle in, and you could let Kurt Angle basically be that buffer. Be that guy who stands up to both Stephanie and Triple H and sits there and does right by the boys in the back or the girls in the back. And when you need somebody to sit there and maybe be a heel general manager, he can do both. He can swing on both sides of the fence. And I think it would be an outstanding move to bring a guy like Kurt Angle back in and let him be your general manager for Raw. And that's kind of where I hope they take the storyline. That's where I hope they sit there and they move everything, because I'm tired of seeing Stephanie come out, and I'm tired of seeing her sit there and slap everything that moves. And I'm tired of Triple H coming out and basically pedigreeing everybody, or sitting there and having his minions, guys like Samoa Joe, just beat everybody down. Guys like Kevin Owens just beat them down. And here's the thing. I think Kevin Owens is going to end up winning at WrestleMania. I think he's going to end up taking the belt off of Chris Jericho. Jericho's on his way out the door as well. Jericho and both John Cena are going to be taking some time off. They need some time away to, one, Jericho's going to sit there and do some things with Fozzy, and Cena's going to be filming 2 movies. So you're going to be losing 2 big baby faces off your roster. So we're going to end up having a brand new draft that'll be coming up. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how they sit there and how they try to stack the decks here. Raw's ratings have continued to slip. Raw is an absolute abomination. It's an abortion most days. I struggle to watch all 3 hours of Raw. I usually only sit there and I watch one part of it, and then the next day I'll sit there and I'll pick it up. I'll kind of fast forward through some matches, and I'll either get to the end, because that's usually when the high spot of the evening is, or I'll sit there, and if I know that there's something big that occurred, I'll usually sit there and watch that moment later on, because honestly, Raw is difficult to get through. It's a struggle. It's 3 hours of just awfulness. SmackDown is 10 times better.
100%. The 2 hours definitely help SmackDown to be a better show. It moves along quicker. And then, of course, you knew it was going to happen, and you knew we were going to be pissed off, because at least they didn't give him Lesnar or Goldberg. But, of course, a show out there next week in Philadelphia is going to get both of them at the same time. But who shows up in the Roman Reigns-Braun Strowman matchup? None other than The Undertaker, and pisses me right off. I'm like, you got to be serious.
Yep.
But he looked old as hell in that spot. That wasn't a good spot for him, because he took down Braun Strowman, and then he kind of looked like he winced and looked like he hurt himself.
And there's a bigger issue there, right? We talked about building up monsters. So essentially, in back-to-back nights, you got Braun Strowman getting annihilated. You had him lose to Roman Reigns, which makes no sense. You sat there and you had him cower to The Undertaker, and then you had The Undertaker show up and powerbomb him or chokeslam him through the mat. And you're right, he winced on it. He looks like he's struggling. He's not in good shape. He's not in good shape. That's why this is probably his last hurrah. This is Roman Reigns will be beating Undertaker. So prepare for it, guys. Get set up to see the one guy that you hate, the one guy that they keep cramming down our throats. And I like Roman Reigns. I don't know how many times I got to tell you guys. I like the guy. I think you could do a lot with Roman Reigns if you just sat there and you didn't cram him down our throats. If you didn't sit there and you didn't force him to be the carbon copy of John Cena. And John Cena's got that attitude where he can play it off. John Cena likes the boos. John Cena likes the cheers. And he can sit there and he can get the entire arena going in both directions for him. Roman Reigns isn't that guy. Roman Reigns can't handle that pressure. He's not John Cena. He's not going to be John Cena. He can give the same flat cardboard box answer that John Cena gives. He's not John Cena. So you're going to have Roman Reigns sit there and take the bullet by beating Undertaker at WrestleMania. This is supposed to be the baton handoff, right? He's not that guy. And he is going to be murdered. You keep booking him so poorly that you're ruining this guy. If you package this guy and you did different things with him, he would be so over. He would be so over. You know who moves the second most merchandise? It's Roman Reigns. There was a grown-ass man when we were at Raw, there was a grown-ass man wearing a Roman Reigns vest. I'm not spending $50 on a Roman Reigns vest so I can walk around and look like a total toolbox. I'm just not doing it. It's not happening at all. He moves merchandise. He could be your next big babyface, and the fans would love him if you booked him better. But you book him in such outlandish ways, and you have him just beat up guys that don't need to be beaten up. Braun Strowman doesn't need to lose, and Roman Reigns sure as hell doesn't need to be the guy to sit there and put the L on his belt. All right? You just don't need to do it. Undertaker's going to lose at some point, right? If we were going to sit there and we're going to do the handoff match, the passing of the baton, It should be somebody who's a little bit more established. It should be a guy who has maybe carried your company, I don't know, for the last 16 years. He could maybe have been John Cena. And you know what you could have did? You could have sat there, you could have put a belt on John Cena. You could have let Undertaker sit there, beat him for the belt, because John Cena just isn't good enough to sit there and get the W. You could have, on the very, very next Monday or Tuesday night, have Undertaker show up and lay the belt down in the middle of the ring, and you just have him disappear into the ether. And then you could sit there and you can tease Undertaker possibly some point ever making a return, but he never does. And then you can open up a tournament to sit there and battle for that belt. Hey, there's a great booking idea, and you know what? I just got you, I don't know, 5 to 6 months of storyline out of that, because now you've got a tournament to sit there and fight for your belt. And at not your next big pay-per-view, but the big pay-per-view after that, you can then sit there and crown a winner. You can move on that way, but they don't do that. They don't have the foresight. They don't have the forethought to sit there and to be able to do things like this. And they have a lot of rushed booking. And look, Vince changes his mind on a whim. He sits there and he farts one way, and you're like, oh, you know what? I got a great idea. Let's do this. And he goes out there and he just puts crap out there for everybody. The one thing that I hope happens, and I hope Vince doesn't screw it up, is the Hardy Boys have been made an offer by WWE. I need them to bring the broken gimmick with them. Now,
there might be some challenges with that. I think
there's a lot of challenges with this because
legal issues.
TNA is trying to sit there and stop the Hardy Boys from using the broken gimmick. The broken gimmick was the one thing that got you interested and kept you interested in TNA for a long time, and now TNA, or I should say Impact, is trying to sit there and stop them from using that image and using that gimmick. And if you are going to use that gimmick, they want to be paid. So hopefully WWE, the Hardy Boys, they can get everything worked out and we can have the Broken Hardys in WWE. And hopefully they get some control creatively. I know Vince is really... he doesn't like to give any creative control to anybody. I mean, look, you got a guy like... Cody Rhodes. He can't even use his own name because Vince McMahon basically went and trademarked Cody Rhodes' name, which it's stupid. It is honestly stupid. There are some times that you end up hurting the business more by being a total idiot and being stubborn than you do helping it out. And these are cases where you've got the Hardy Boys and you've got the Broken Hardy gimmick and you've got a guy like Cody Rhodes, and you don't allow them to basically be themselves, because you don't want them earning any money that's not coming from you or helping your promotion, and that's an issue.
You know what might hurt the business? Inappropriate videos being released to the internet.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about this.
So how come it took you so long to see it? My goodness.
I don't... When these types of videos come out and people like Paige have their privacy...
invaded.
Yeah, that's probably the best word for it. I don't go looking for it. If I come across it, or in this case... you found it and you were like, have you seen this? And I was like, I've not seen it. You were like, check this out. I totally checked it out. And I'm going to be honest with you. I sat there and I passed that along to 2 of my buddies. Like, check this out. So like, I'll push it, but I'm not going to go look for it. Right. Here's the thing. There is rumor and speculation because Maria Kanellis just had her privacy and some images stolen, as well as I believe it's Caitlyn. She used to be a former WWE Divas champion as well. And both of them are both attractive looking women, and they both just had some of their privacy stolen by, it is assumed to be the same person. So I don't go looking for it, but if it comes my way, yes, I will take a look. And I thought it was a pretty boring 7 minutes. It was interesting, and that NXT title belt should never be kissed by anybody ever. But you look, man, I think it sucks when your privacy gets stolen like that. I think it's brutal. But
WWE's not punishing her. So.
I know. This is what's interesting, right? Because Paige has basically thumbed her nose and given WWE the middle finger on numerous occasions. Whether it be her going back and forth on Twitter with the WWE doctors and putting things out there for her wellness policy suspensions, or her sitting there and being boyfriend girlfriend with Alberto Del Rio, who is now in Impact Wrestling, and going to Impact Wrestling's tapings, and her being mentioned and seen in their locker room. I mean, that's not good if you're an employee of WWE. You're not allowed to do these things. And she's like, you know what? I just don't care. And in the end, there's a movie being made about her by The Rock, and WWE has some influence in this movie making that The Rock is doing about Paige. So it's super interesting because she is the one person who seems to get away with a whole bunch, and WWE can't necessarily come down on her. And, I'm glad WWE's not punishing her because, look, it was her privacy that was stolen. Those videos are of her. If anything, they hurt her. They don't necessarily hurt WWE. And yeah, she was in a
compromised position.
Okay, yes, going 3 different ways with a guy like Xavier Woods. And it's what it is. It sucks that these things happen. But man, Paige always seems to find herself in a world of shit.
But if she ever shows up again in a WWE ring, I just want to be there and see what the crowd reaction is going to be. Are they going to be vile? I think a lot of people are supporting her, and WWE is going to support her because, again, it was stolen. It wasn't like she released it.
Right.
It was stolen from her, private cell phone, and it's one of those things where I think the WWE universe, maybe if you go into a town like Philly, you might have to just put her in a nice, safe, town out there in the middle of nowhere that don't chant too much.
Wrestling crowds are brutal, and they're an animal all upon themselves. And I would hope if she does ever come back to WWE and she does make a television appearance and she's out there, I would hope that the crowd isn't brutal. But again, you just don't know. You have no idea because they're honestly, man, WWE crowds are animals. And you know what? Me and you both, we're part of the problem. Because look, my voice was gone for almost an entire week because I was screaming either obscene things or I was just screaming along with the crowd when they were here in Detroit. And it is absolutely insane. Absolutely nuts.
Okay, now I see that you're interested in this Lucha Underground. I see the commercials. Now fill me in. I know nothing about it other than I think it's like a scripted wrestling show.
Well, they're all scripted. All wrestling is scripted. Let's just kind of let's not pretend like it's actual real. Like the matches.
Yeah,
are
but I mean it's a little bit
predetermined.
different, meaning that it's like
it's more of a TV
produced
show.
Yes,
it's more of a almost like a sitcom series
with wrestling involved.
Yes, it all takes place around wrestling. And here's the thing: I wasn't really sure about it. I'm sitting there and I'm binge watching the first 2 seasons on Netflix. That's been the big thing. Is Lucha Underground is now on Netflix. I've not watched season 3 at all. So I'm kind of building my way into getting caught up with everything. So I figured I'd give it a shot. I knew nothing about it. I asked a couple people, like, what do you like about it? What's good about it? And it gets mixed reviews. Either you really like it or you don't like it at all. I'm on episode 7 of season 1 right now. And I can say that I'm interested. It holds my interest. If you were ever into WCW and you were ever into a lot of what the Cruiserweights did, or if you're into the Cruiserweight Challenge that WWE puts on, then you will definitely like this. It's a little bit different than your regular WWE product. Lucha Underground is what the Cruiserweights should be. Because I don't know about you, but the Cruiserweights in 205 Live does not hold my interest. I like Neville, I like Austin Aries.
And that's about it.
And that's about it.
And a bunch of jobbers.
Yeah. After that, it's some guys.
Jobber Central.
Yeah. It's some guys
who's the highest rated jobber.
It's some guys where I'm like, yeah, you know what? He might be good. But the way they package them, the way they present these guys, it's brutal. It's absolutely atrocious. So Lucha Underground is what the Cruiserweights should be. It's probably the way they should be presented. If you're a fan of any type of lucha wrestling, you're going to like this. I guess at certain points it does get a little outlandish because they've got spacemen that end up coming and wrestling, and their whole story is they're from space. I don't know. I'm not that far yet. Like I said, I'm only on episode 7. I think
thumbs up from you.
I think it's pretty good. I like it a lot. It's what WWE should be doing with their under 205-pound wrestlers. It's very reminiscent of where Chris Jericho came from when he was wrestling. It's very reminiscent of Rey Mysterio Jr. back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's that type of wrestling. It's good. I like it a lot so far. So I think check it out. You haven't seen it yet. I'd like you have Netflix, right?
I'm going to check it out.
All right, yeah, take a look and let me know what you think.
All right, let's segue into Jock Jams. I got a lot of things, a lot of national news and a lot of local news to get into in what we call Jock Jams. Well, cuz one thing you can't do as a sporting organization is piss off your fan base. And for the last week, all I'm hearing is everybody's pissed that's a basketball fan because on national TV, the Cavs and other teams are resting their players. Now, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver is now forced to send a memo to team owners talking about resting players and saying, hey, you got to follow protocol because we got advertisers pissed off. We got networks pissed off. All you're seeing on local shows is a bunch of fans with signs saying, hey, I flew all the way here to see LeBron James and he ain't there. So do you like how Adam Silver's handling this? And what's your take on this hullabaloo regarding the NBA resting players?
I don't think the big issue is necessarily that teams are resting players. It's when they're resting players. When you're the Cavs and you're taking on say San Antonio, and both teams are resting their big stars, and this is a nationally televised game that's on ESPN and it's being broadcast in numerous countries, that's a bad look for the NBA. So it puts Adam Silver in a weird spot, and he now has to come out and he has to say something. And you know what? I say kudos to Adam Silver, and I liked Adam Silver a lot. I think he does a lot of good things to advance the NBA. The one thing that you can say about David Stern, and David Stern was a great commissioner, but David Stern was always looked upon with kind of an awkward eye because David Stern, you weren't ever 100% sure if David Stern was on the up and up or if he was doing some things to manipulate how the NBA was either being presented or was being received by the viewer. And I think Adam Silver has done a very good job of bringing the viewer in, bringing the public in, and making them feel comfortable that everything is on the up and up. And he has now gone so far to say, look, guys, I don't necessarily have a problem with you resting your players, but you can't rest your starting five and sit there and just roll out your bench players when we've got nationally televised games. Look, if LeBron needs a day off, that's fine. You just can't sit there and you can't give him a day off when you're going to give Kyrie a day off. And if all of Golden State needs a day off, that's fine. But look, you got to play Steph and you got to play Clay. And if you're going to get, day a day off, go ahead, give them a day off. You just can't sit there and you can't put everybody on the bench at the same exact time. It's a bad look for us. It's a bad look for our product. And it's all about product advancement. It's all about making it a global entity. The NBA wants to be as far-reaching as it can possibly be. It wants to be in the United States. It wants to be in China. It wants to be in South America. It wants to be everywhere. And the way you do that is by having the best players push your game and push your sport. That was the original idea with the Dream Team. We was to sit there and to take our very best players and put them on a global scale and see how well we match up against other global teams, and to sit there and in the end, the Dream Team crushed basketball, and it helped advance the product. That's why you've got guys like Yao Ming in the NBA Hall of Fame. That's why you have basketball that is now on par with in China or in Argentina or in Brazil even. You've got actual basketball programs and leagues that are now in these areas where it wasn't 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And that's all because the NBA has sat there and done a good job presenting and marketing itself. So don't screw it up is basically what he's saying. And I applaud him for it. I think it's good. I think it's good that he has now stepped in and he has said, hey, look, guys, I get it. You got older players who need breaks. And Greg Popovich was the one who was, and Greg Popovich is such a great coach, such a great freaking coach. And yeah, I know he's salty sometimes, and I know he's a curmudgeon, but damn, he's a really good coach. And he did this to sit there and preserve his players, guys like Tim Duncan down the stretch there of their career. And he probably got you another year or two out of the big fundamental because he was able to sit there and preserve their legs. Same thing with Manu Ginobili. He was able to sit there and get extra years out of these guys because he sat there and he rested them. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually a very good thing, but you got to be wise when you do it. Don't sit there and don't bench your superstars when you got big games going on. You can sit there and you can bench them when you're going to sit there and you're going to go and play Milwaukee. That's fine. Nobody gives a crap, right? But when it's the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Golden State Warriors, everybody wants to see that matchup.
Now, it's very interesting in switching gears, talking about the Red Wings, looking at how they view the perception of the fans regarding the team. Many people want the Detroit Red Wings to just play young players. But Red Wings head coach Jeff Blashill, in an interview, said that young talent is best served staying in the minors. Do you agree?
I want to punch Jeff Blashill in the face, and I want to give him a black eye like he had when he sat there and he took that hockey puck. No. At this point, what the hell do you have to lose? You're not making the playoffs. You're not. There's no chance in hell you make it. I know you technically haven't been eliminated yet. I think only Colorado is mathematically eliminated at this point, but you're not making the playoffs. At this point, you are playing for a draft pick. That's what you're doing. And by you going out and you winning games, and I know this is hard to say because professional athletes don't ever want to go out there and lose games, but you should see a flip-flop of how many minutes your veterans are getting. At this point, Anthony Mantha, Dylan Larkin, those guys should be leading your way with your on-ice time. You need to put these guys in position to sit there and really see what they have. Put them out there against the other team's starting lineup, the other team's best lineup, and see what they get, see what they can do. The other night, Anthony Mantha had an outstanding overtime goal, and you need to be bringing up some of these younger kids and filtering them into your top 2 lines, your top 3 lines to really see what they can get. Look, I know what I have with Henrik Zetterberg, and I'm okay. It's what it is. Going into this expansion draft, he's one of the guys I'm leaving unprotected. He just is. I appreciate everything he's done for me. I'm tired of his contract, and I know he can score big-time goals for me. It's time for me to move on. I need to sit there and I need to reboot and I need to revitalize my team. And if that means that I've got to kind of suck on sour grapes for an entire year, an entire season, maybe 2, maybe 3, I'm going to roll the dice and I'm going to suck on sour grapes and I'm going to be a bottom feeder for a little bit because I'm going to go into those drafts and I'm going to get the best talent I can procure and put on my team. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to now look to re-jump this for another 25 years. You need to bring these young kids up. You need to play them. I don't want to hear any more about what I got going on in the minors. That's cool. Great, the minors. Ken Holland does so much good stuff for the minors. Maybe he should be in Grand Rapids. Maybe we need another general manager to sit there and facilitate what is going on for the Detroit Red Wings because I'm so tired of hearing about what I got going on in the AHL. I'm over it.
One last thing I definitely want to know about is I definitely scour the landscape of Twitter, and I seen Barry Sanders and what he kind of tweeted about. And on his Twitter account, he posted a picture of what was the Mount Rushmore of Detroit sports, and it included Barry Sanders, Joe Dumars, Cecil Fielder, and Stevie Y. I'm curious to know for you, who would be on your modern-day Mount Rushmore of Detroit sports?
That's interesting. That's a real interesting question because a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how dreadful Detroit sports are right now. I mean, the Red Wings aren't going to sit there and they're not going to make the playoffs. It looked as though that the Tigers were in a complete sell mode. Pistons are totally up and down, and I don't know who the face of that franchise is. The Lions, we talked about it. Lions are probably the team that if you were looking to buy, you'd probably buy on the Lions because, it seems as though they've got a general manager who actually has his head screwed on straight and knows how to build a team. And it's a little bit early in that, and you don't maybe want to push all in, but if you're looking to buy low so you can maybe turn around and sell high later, probably be the Lions. But if I had to do a modern-day Mount Rushmore of the Detroit sports scene, who would it be? I think you're going to start with the Lions, and that's going to be Matt Stafford. I think he's the face of the franchise at this point, and maybe in 2 years' time, he's not the face of that franchise anymore because maybe they don't work out a long-term deal for him. But I think at this exact moment, he's the guy. You say Detroit Lions, you think Matt Stafford. The Pistons, let's come back to them. Tigers, probably Justin Verlander. He's out there all the time, especially now with him and Kate, and she's on everything, and she's always putting things out there on Twitter, or she's on, what's that show that you like? Andy, what's his nuts?
Watch What Happens Live.
Yeah, that show. What's the guy's name? Andy
Cohen.
Yeah, Andy Cohen. That's your boy. So she's out there all the time, and she's always promoting him, and so I think Justin Verlander would definitely be up there. At this point, the Red Wings, they're kind of in that same spot where the Pistons are, and I don't know if they actually have a face of the franchise for either one of those. So if I have to go with my top 4 for a Mount Rushmore, it's definitely Justin Verlander, it's definitely Matt Stafford, and then I'm going to put the Doc up there, and I'm going to put the Jock up there. Because with the things that we've been doing lately, we deserve to be up there. And I'm going to put us heads and tails above whatever the hell's going on with the Detroit Red Wings and whatever the hell is going on with the Detroit Pistons.
Yes, sir. Great round of Jock Jams. I know we're a little light on Lions talk this week, but basically they made a couple signings. We're looking at mock drafts. We'll have a lot more stuff next week regarding the Detroit Lions, but great information provided by you. A lot of insight. Good stuff, sir. Let's take our final timeout and let's come back and explore what the hell's going on with our Detroit Tigers, making some news, making some waves as spring training has progressed. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
Thanks again for everybody finding us via our various platforms, Podomatic, Stitcher, iTunes, Podbay, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Anywhere at all that you can find podcasts, you'll find the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Sir, have you been paying attention to the Detroit Tigers? Obviously, the big news of the week is how concerned should we be regarding JD Martinez's foot sprain. Got injured out there in the outfield, of course, and you look at it, everyone in the organization is saying the right things. Brad Ausmus has tried to diffuse any concern. Many people are like, well, he's going out there to get a second opinion, which usually leads to maybe, I don't think you go out for a second opinion to get a reassurance. Usually you get a second opinion when the first opinion is maybe not so good. But many people believe that it's just a minor thing, and it's one of those things that should go away, and he'll be ready for opening day. You concerned at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The big issue, and still we have question marks on what's going on in center field. So now you're going to have a question mark with what's going to happen with right field. And JD Martinez and his production can't really be duplicated by anybody else on this roster. And he's part of that murderer's row that you have that kind of fills out your top 6 bats of your lineup. So yeah, I have a lot of concern. He is a guy that you can't necessarily lose. And if this team is going to submarine later on in the year, he's one of those chips that you have that you're looking to possibly trade off. So you need him to come out of the gate and be hot and just to kind of get going, and you need him to be healthy. And if it's a foot issue, where does all the power come from for batters? It comes from their base. So you need JD Martinez to be hot, and you need him to be ready to go once opening day starts. And you can't sit there and you can't have him struggling either at the plate or in the field. And let's be honest, the big crux against JD Martinez is that he's not a plus outfielder. He's basically an average to below average outfielder, and he was taking steps at improving that, becoming a better right fielder, and really helping this team. And to sit there and to have a foot injury this close to spring training coming to a crescendo, that's a big issue.
Cuz I just wonder sometimes why things can't be easy. Anibal Sanchez, Mike Pelfrey, Mark Lowe, they were all on their way out. They were pitching horribly. It was an easy decision. Even, Al Avila could have made it. Brad Ausmus was coming out, trashing them. So then inevitably what happens? Sanchez starts to turn it around. Now he's come out and said that Doobie made an adjustment in terms of how he's throwing the baseball. He's pitched better his last 2 performances. Pelfrey hasn't looked like the abomination of a pitcher in the last few outings. Lowe probably hasn't done a whole heck of a lot more than what we would like, but it's interesting in that we were on the road to cutting all 3 guys. Now they've come back and had some solid performances, and it's leading a lot of people to question, because Boyd still has an option to go back to the minors left, whether or not Sanchez could slide his way into that 5th starter position. If it's up to me, the odd 3 out would be Sanchez, Pelfrey, and Lowe. Just cut ties and eat whatever contract you got to do. If you can hide Sanchez and Pelfrey, likely in the bullpen, fine. Lowe could be the odd man out, but I believe that Boyd has the potential for some big things, and what you're seeing, what he's doing in spring training, he's kind of earned that 5th spot. Everybody that's talking about it and looking at it has said that the first 4 spots are solidified. We know who they are in terms of Zimmerman, Justin Verlander, Fulmer, and Daniel Norris. So the odd man out would be still those 3 guys, but they're doing things to make themselves come back, and I'm like, why? Why any opportunity to open that Pandora's box I just want to remove.
Yeah, if there was, why can't things just be easy, right?
Why can't they just be easy?
And I think it would be a huge disservice to sit there and to send Matt Boyd to the minors. He's a guy that I want him to be the fifth starter on this roster. Again, if you can hide Sanchez, if you have to hide Pelfrey in the bullpen, go ahead and do it. Sanchez just threw 5 strikeouts over 4 scoreless innings. And, Brad Osman sat there and caught him the other day in a bullpen session, and they were working on a few things, and he comes out and he looks a lot better. The velocity's not there, but he looks a lot better. If I'm going to eat a contract, it's probably going to be Mark Lowe's just because it's the easiest to absorb. I would like Pelfrey's contract to go away. Just set it on fire, whatever you got to do. Tear it up, use it for kindling, and get a huge bonfire going out there in the bullpen. But look, I don't think Sanchez is going anywhere. I think Sanchez is going to end up staying.
Thanks for that.
I don't know if he'll make your starting rotation, though. I don't know if you can, in good conscience, put him out there as your fifth starter every single fifth day. I just don't know if that can work for this team. And then what does that say to a guy like Matt Boyd? You're like, yeah, you've been crushing it and you've done everything we've asked, but we're going to send you down. So keep working on all that, and then maybe we'll bring it back up. I just don't think you can do that to that guy. And I think it sends mixed messages to him. And I don't think that's fair to him. I really don't. Look, Anibal Sanchez and Matt Boyd. You're going to go Matt Boyd all day. Matt Boyd, Pelfrey. You're going to go Matt Boyd. And Mark Lowe, he's a bullpen arm. So you would hope that he would kind of figure it out at this point. He doesn't look like he's going to. So Matt Boyd's your fifth starter. And Sanchez, we're going to send you to the bullpen. We'll use you maybe some long relief spots. And then after that, that's kind of what it is. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to have to absorb both Pelfrey and Lowe's contract.
Now, final thing with the Detroit Tigers. Now, obviously, the biggest news and what we want to know about is how is this team going to play going into the start of the season? Is everybody going to stay healthy? Who's going to perform? Who potentially could help this team out? You know that there's going to be question marks all across the board regarding who's going to be in center field. How's this bullpen going to shake out? How consistent is this offense going to be? In every department, in terms of the offense and defense, we have questions. But there are some positives on this team. When we look at it, you go, wow, Nick Castellanos could potentially be the breakout guy, the guy that could turn it around and really be a solid producer. JD Martinez, if he continues to hit at the pace that he has his first couple of years with the Tigers, is really going to make the Houston Astros have egg all over their face. Can Justin Upton have the career resurgence after a horrible 4 months, his first go-around with the Detroit Tigers, his first season? But there's a lot of good storylines because of the fact that there is talent on this team. You got Norris out there who's going to be working hard. You got Zimmerman who's going to be trying to come back. You got Matt Boyd trying to earn that fifth spot and trying to be that guy that can be a guy that you can count on to be in that fifth spot. Shane Green, whether or not he can come back. But a guy for me that I feel like is going to have a breakout season is going to be Nick Castellanos. I think that he's going to continue. And last year when we looked at it, his season was cut short by an injury. But the numbers that he was able to produce prior to the injury and just after, it was unbelievable. I really think that Nick Castellanos, if he continues to work on his defense and his fielding abilities, then he's going to be a really solid all-around player. But he can be a bat that can basically cover up the weaknesses in McCann and Iglesias if they struggle out the gate. But I really like Nick Castellanos and the way he approaches things and what he can do, because if he gets out there with 25 home runs and 80 to 100 RBIs, now you have another guy in that offensive lineup that you can't pitch around, and I think it makes the whole team better.
Two guys that I'm going to be watching to have a huge season. And when I say huge, I don't mean they're going to sit there and they're going to put up Miguel Cabrera numbers or they're going to put up Justin Verlander numbers. It's going to be Justin Upton. If Justin Upton can sit there and kind of build off of what he did late last season, and so far throughout spring training, he's been taking a lot of at-bats, and he seems to be much more comfortable. I think a lot of what his issue was early last season was he was just kind of uncomfortable, trying to find his spot, trying to figure out what he can do on this team. I think he's much more comfortable. Look, he's going to be a streaky hitter. That's what he is. That's what he does. If he can hit somewhere closer to 280 over the course of the year and give you longer streaks of good as opposed to bad streaks, I think it's going to be a total plus for this team, and I think that's going to help things out. Sometimes he can be a little bit of an adventure out there in left field, but I think if he can sit there and just give you some better at-bats, day in, day out. And those bad streaks are kind of condensed to only a few games instead of a long haul. That's going to be huge for this team. And then Daniel Norris. Daniel Norris, if you remember, he was the centerpiece of that trade a few years ago. He was the guy that was the must-have. And then everything happened with Fulmer. So if Daniel Norris can come back, be healthy, because he's been derailed because of his health issues the last couple of years, really solidify what happens after those first three guys and gives you some really plus days out of that fourth spot, I think that's huge. That's going to be big time for this team. And then we can kind of figure out and we can argue and debate whether or not Boyd or Sanchez should be your fifth starter. But Daniel Norris and Justin Upton are two guys that I'm going to be watching to sit there and really come out and have really plus seasons. And they can kind of be the two guys to really either help that starting rotation out or help out that batting lineup. And if they kind of go the other way, it could totally derail this Tiger season. So I'm looking at those two guys, though, to be total pluses going into this year.
Great podcast, sir. Always great to check in. You know, like we always say, turn on the mics and 90 minutes flies by. I appreciate the time. Great stuff from you. Great stuff from the network. And if you're looking for a great article, go to DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Check out the profile that we did on our very own Vito Churko, who's on vacation. So we wish him well in his time off. Well-deserved. He's doing some big things, and he's a hustler. And that's why we enjoy having him and everyone else here on the network. So I appreciate your time. Great podcast. On our way, getting closer, 11 away from number 200.
Yeah, check out the Podfather and check out his great piece that he ended up doing with Thomas the Hitman Hearns.
His podcast, the Two Bad Hombres podcast, comes out this Saturday, and look for more great guests on that fine podcast. And continue to look and peek into what we're doing by visiting our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John McAroon. We appreciate you listening.
Go Michigan.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that I will do. They show me things